many months ago, might have been maybe a year ago, our friend Dan from Spokane brought me up an article about from the Prison Dharma Network by Fleet Mall on radical responsibility. And I was really taken with it. It was very moving. And he said, "Oh, someday I expect I'll see a BBC on this." And I looked at that article, and I've looked at that article, and finally, in a cleanup last fall, maybe he brought it up 2 years ago. In a cleanup last fall, I said, "You've not used it, recycle it." But now, the last week, I've really been thinking about this radical responsibility. And so I don't have the article anymore. But I'm intrigued with this little simple phrase, radical responsibility. What does that mean? So I was much surprised when I went online to see if I could find the article itself that radical responsibility has become kind of a movement. Fleet Mall has written a book about it. Several other people have written books about it. It's like a philosophical point of view that says radical responsibility means I choose to live my life willing to take 100% responsibility for everything that happens. The more honest I am with myself, the more I see the world as mirroring back my inner landscape. Radical responsibility means to shift from living in a victim perspective of blame, resentment, self-justification, and the need to be right, to being accountable and taking radical responsibility, capital R, for our lives and for the health and authenticity of our relationships. And I thought, I think radical responsibility may be a new trend in the self-empowerment movement, but the Buddha's been teaching this for a very, very long time. And I know that's the basis of Fleet Mall's work. I don't mean to denigrate that in any way, but just went back to the quote in the Dhammapada where it says, the Buddha said, "Look how he abused me. Look how he beat me, how he threw me down and robbed me. Live with such thoughts, and you live in hate." So fault and blame are very harsh words in our culture. They imply being evil. They imply being someone is guilty. And, thinking in this way is a dead end. Live with such thoughts, and you live in hate. When we blame other people, we become angry, outraged, vindictive. When we blame ourselves, we become depressed, self-destructive. And besides, blaming oversimplifies a complex situation. So I was thinking about this in terms of the 8 sufferings of human beings, which we'll get to in a minute, but seeing how easy it is, how kind of reflexive our ignorance takes us to looking outside of ourselves for the source of any difficulty, any hassle, any problem, anything that arises purely in our own minds. Somebody, something out there did it. But every situation arises from a multiplicity of causes and conditions. And when we blame, it is our self-centeredness and our ignorance grasping at true existence that is the one making that accusation. When we blame anybody, any group, any people, any condition, we are giving it more power than it actually has. By themselves, no person, no situation, no windstorm, no disease, no nothing can create all that damage by itself alone. It comes together as a result of many conditions. Homi dharma he prabhava he tunte shanta takato he vadatation sayo niroda evam bari mahashramanaya soha. Phenomena arise from causes, said the sage. Their cessation, too, is what he taught of. Similarly, when we blame ourselves, we've got the same thing going on. We're thinking we ourselves caused the whole situation to be disastrous. We caused the problem. We don't have that kind of power either. It comes together through causes and conditions. So Venerable Children says this in her book on working with anger. Framing situations in terms of blame is both inaccurate and useless. Straightforward. Rather, in each situation, we need to evaluate which factors are our responsibility and which are others' responsibility. So that's the beginning. Often we take responsibility for things that are not our responsibility, and we give responsibility to others that's not their responsibility. So we're not so clear, even in our, if we begin to analyze what are the causes and conditions that are contributing here, we need to do some real thinking about what is genuinely my responsibility, what is my part in this, and what is the other person's part in this, and let them own it. It's not ours to fix, repair, or it's their thing. This involves clearly reflecting on the situation, she says, without exaggerating either our own or others' power or importance. That's what I just said, not as eloquently as she. In this way, we will observe the factors that we contributed, make amends for them, and try to avoid them in the future. So to continue with that Dhammapada verse, look how he abused me and beat me, how he threw me down and robbed me. Abandon such thoughts and live in love. So when we are suffering, when we are angry, when we think we've been wronged or harmed, when we are in tight situation, what did we learn about what is the cause of our suffering?
Ignorance, self-grasping at the eye.
The cause of our suffering is our past negative actions, arising out of the ignorance or the afflictions that then, The cause of our suffering, who was saying our past negative actions. Pure and simple. Our past negative actions. What's the cause of our happiness? Our virtuous actions. Our virtuous actions. It is so hard to make that connection. I am feeling really rotten this moment because she did this, he did that, they said this feels bad, no, I'm feeling rotten this minute because some non-virtuous karma is ripening in my mind. Anything else that I might want to blame might be a cooperative cause and might not. Might just be my projection. But I am suffering in this very moment because of my own past negative actions. So then this is where it took me to, it's like, we look at the 8 sufferings of sentient beings. First, birth. Now even that, did anybody ever say in their life, I didn't ask to be born? Right, right, we use it with our parents, right? I didn't ask to be born. You did it. Your fault, I'm here. I would say that's blame, misplaced. Did we create the causes to be born? We did. What about aging? What do we want to blame our aging on? Free radicals. Our boss, right? That child of mine, I've been aged 20 years. Oh, that job, I've aged 20 years. Look at how the presidents go gray in the course of becoming president of the United States. It's amazing, right? This one won't go gray, it's true. This one won't. Still, aging is happening. Why? We created the causes for it. Sickness, I don't care how many germs, how many vegetables didn't get washed, la 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 la. It's a result of our past negative actions. And the same with death. Why did I die? I was born. Why was I born? Craving and grasping at the time of the last death. How fortunate I was born human, even. So then there's the ones that we deal with every day, being separated from what we like, being separated from what we love. This is so hard. We lose our jobs, we're separated from our loved ones, we lose our homes. We love to blame. That's not the cause. Meeting with what we don't like, problems arising moment by moment. Things are fine and somebody walks in and leans over you and asks a question. Ah! Problem. Someone calls with an emergency something. I don't know, the pipes just broke. Ah! We want to blame. Why didn't they leave the link, this thing, so that the faucet would drip? Why did they not do that? Whose fault is it that that pipe froze? We want to blame, but it's simply the suffering of cyclic existence, right? And any discomfort that we're having as a result of it, it's not that even having a frozen pipe is in and of itself a negative thing. It's our own response and suffering to it. And that comes from our afflictions and karma. Not getting what we want all day long. Not getting what we want. One of the sufferings of just being human. And it's so easy to blame when in fact we can look at all kinds of causality for, causes and conditions about why this particular thing didn't happen. And take radical responsibility for it. That's what it comes down to. Having a body and mind under the influence of karma and afflictions. Who's responsible? Me. So, Venerable recommends some of the things that we can do. I mean, when we're suffering and we're angry and we're blaming, why? Why are we doing that? Because we think it will relieve the pain. Somehow we think if we can put the responsibility over there on somebody else. We're not doing this deliberately. It's just in a habit, really. It's a training. But somehow it hurts so bad. If I can give it to you, fine, you take it. You take it. But it doesn't work that way. It doesn't ever work that way. And usually it just makes the situation worse. So Venerable says, first, think about how did I create the causes for this? First, we have to recognize, oops, I'm blaming. Think, radical responsibility. It's a nice catchphrase. Radical responsibility. And that makes us think, how did I create the causes for this? So we look like what we might have done in this life to contribute to the situation, and we have to be courageously honest with ourselves. Sometimes we have a negative speech coming that we're not very attentive to. Sometimes we're negligent. It's not necessary that we did something deliberate, but almost out of passivity. We didn't move when we could have. That might have brought something about. Did we do something to aggravate a situation carelessly? And really then think about the deeper experience of the results of our karma. Especially as practitioners, it's kind of where we need to take our mind. And when we do that, it's a huge relief. Don't you agree? I mean, in the times where we remember not to blame, doesn't it take a huge pressure off the mind? A pressure off of our suffering? Oh, wait a minute. I am radically responsible for my suffering in this moment. This is not blaming the victim. It's not about that. But how many times throughout our lives do we make ourselves a victim when in fact we're seriously not? So Fleetmall says, remember, any time we're attributing the cause of our happiness or unhappiness to something outside of ourselves, we are essentially giving away our power. We are essentially making somebody else responsible for our lives and our experience. So to conclude that Dhammapada section, the Buddha said, in this world, hate never dispelled hate. Only love dispels hate. This is the law, ancient and inexhaustible. So when we find our minds in that state where we are, where is it? Look how he abused me. Look how she beat me, how she threw me down and robbed me. Live with such thoughts and you live in hate. Abandon such thoughts. We live in love. And really more importantly, not more importantly, but more in a kind of day-to-day level, when we take that kind of radical responsibility, then our own suffering is diminished and our capacity to be in relationship with each other is strengthened.